So we're in Astoria, Queens. We just finished up at Midtown Comics, and Cassidy wanted to go into the
Museum of the Moving Image.
So let's see what that's about. Another museum visit. Look at us getting cultured. Now let's go to the Muppets. Recently, we traveled to Astoria, Queens to visit Midtown Comics outlet store. Check that video out. While there, we stopped in the Museum of the Moving Image. Basically, it's a history of how we got here to our YouTube channel, as without what came before, we wouldn't be here. Plus, the museum has a very collector's feel to it, which included some of my favorite toys. Oh, you'll see. It includes a lot of information, what goes on behind the screen, the history of cameras, from the big super cameras to today's handheld, also history of lighting, history of microphones, basically the history of how movies were made.
It's a museum that I've been wanting to go to for a long time now, so when I was looking at Midtown Comics in Queens and noticed that this was only a few blocks away, I asked if we could go on the same trip.
Why would I say no?
And we were very happy that we did.
So this is our second museum episode. Look at us, we're getting cultured here. Plus they have some movie props, like Freddy's giant sweater and the building from my all-time favorite movie, Blade Runner. I really enjoyed the history of the TV set. Take a look at that.
So they really did have a lot on the behind the scenes of movies, because I feel like when a lot of people watch movies, they don't really fully appreciate all the work that went on behind the scenes.
And how long it's come, how it's changed over the years.
In only about 100 years. I mean, seeing the progression
of just a camera
is so amazing. Seeing how big it was to now, like, how people had handheld.
Yeah.
So they had a part about how editing has changed, because it used to have to be done all by hand, people splicing together film, but now you do it so easily digitally, right? Yeah. And they had some really cool interactive screens
that was fun
for kind of each segment. So they had, for Foley sound, they had for music. So they had a screen, and you could pick a clip from. They had a few movies.
Terminator,
Home Alone was one of them.
Independence
for
Day.
Different segments. But so we did 2 of them. But for one of the music ones, we watched the clip from Independence Day when they first see
when the
alien
spaceship first comes out.
So first they play the clip without any music, and it's just silent, and you're like, oh, this is really weird. And then they have 4 different types of music that you can play along with it. One of them is the original that they had in the film, but then they have other ones, and you can really see how
what music does for
different types of music really impacts it. Because one of them kind of made it seem like it was this glorious, like really happy.
Right, it was a good thing they were coming.
Yeah, it was a good thing that the alien spaceship was there. But the one that was in the film is very like doom is coming.
It's funny because you don't notice music in movies unless it's bad. If the music fits what's going on, you kind of don't even really think about it. But if it doesn't fit it, you immediately go, wait, it invokes a feeling. So this was cool.
They had a clip from the original Twister that I watched, and it was cool because the original soundtrack, it made it more happy, but some of them had it like it was a car chase. Right. So really cool interactive stuff to really see.
Yeah, we actually did one where we could do sound effects too. We did the sound effects in a movie and
for like a gunshot
made them silly.
Terminator, made it sound like a cartoon.
Yeah, it was museum is really fun. It's interactive. It was crowded but not too crowded. But they had a lot of stuff. So it's basically,
and it makes you even more appreciate what goes on behind. They had a whole hair and makeup. So they had some of the kind of facial things that have been put on actors. I'm so impressed by wigs because they just
how intricate they are.
They just look so amazing, and someone had to hand make them. So definitely a lot of cool stuff.
Yep, it was good. And they also had Star Wars stuff, things I both love to have in my collection, along with things I actually have in my collection. Yes, I have museum pieces in my collection. They had Star Wars toys, action figures and collectibles. Who wouldn't love that? A museum that has that is good with me. They even had that infamous C-3PO tape dispenser. They also had Mego figures from Star Trek, along with some other Star Trek stuff. We're seeing more and more Star Trek everywhere we go. Also enjoyed the History of Toys display. They had a whole history by decades of the different toys.
History of like the merchandising in film.
Disney was one of the first ones,
which was started by Disney. So them having a lot of Star Wars toys and merchandise was very interesting because while they said that Disney started kind of merchandising for films, they also talked about how Star Wars was the first film and franchise that relied on the merchandising as making their money and to get advertising and to get people to see the movie, which I guess in today's day and age, like me watching Star Wars, I don't think about how Star Wars really started like that. So,
and Star Wars really started the craze for making children's toys for a movie. Before that, there really wasn't a lot out there. Like, you would have a blockbuster movie, you wouldn't have a lot of merchandise out there. And the thing about the Star Wars too is that George Lucas got a lot of the profit from that. He signed a deal when he licensed it, and he gets like a ridiculous amount of money from all of the stuff that sold, and they sold everything from Star Wars. Check out some of our older videos. Some of the products that Star Wars put out over the years is unbelievable.
And they really had to make all that merchandise to make money and get people excited for a sequel to Star Wars.
Listen, when Star Wars came out as a kid, it changed the toys that I played with the second I saw it. Before Star Wars, I was playing with superhero Mego figures. After Star Wars, all I ever wanted was Star Wars, and anything that could fit in that 3 3/4 figures, anything that fit into my Star Wars playing, that's all I wanted for birthdays, for Christmas, when I went to the store and got to buy something. And seeing it in a museum both makes me feel old, and is also nice to see that people are honoring how important Star Wars was.
We love seeing Star Wars.
Yeah, we love Star Wars.
They had the Chewbacca mask.
Yeah, they had other stuff too there. So actually, both museums we visited have a lot of Star Wars stuff, which means I'm getting old. The real reason why we went there was Cassidy wanted to see the Jim Henson display, and it was amazing. Here's a quick look at Jim Henson's awesome display. I really liked seeing the puppets and the props from the Muppet Show. Muppet Show was a big influence on me as a kid. It was one of the first shows, like actually one of the last shows I was allowed to watch as a kid, because then once it ended, I had to go to bed, as most kids had to do in the 70s and 80s. Do you want to talk about the Jim Henson display?
I mean, it was really cool to see first what Jim Henson was doing before. He kind of considered himself a visual artist first, not a puppeteer, which is so crazy because he's really only known for his puppeteering. So it was kind of about his early life first, and then I loved reading about how him and Frank Oz relationship started, that Frank Oz was kind of on his last...
down on his luck.
Yeah, and then they met, and suddenly they had this beautiful partnership. I mean, Frank Oz has done so much puppeteering. So one of Frank Oz's first jobs with Jim Henson was puppeteering only one of the arms of the puppet Rolf.
Which is, wow, he came a long way from one.
While Jim Henson did the other arm and the head. So his first job was just one
thing. And one of the things I learned is that in the first season of Saturday Night Live, they had a sketch where they used Jim Henson's puppets. It was like the Something Swamp. It was interesting. I had no idea that Jim Henson worked on Saturday Night Live. It was from the 1976 season. I was only 4, so I guess I wasn't watching Saturday Night Live at that time.
And if you are a lover of the Muppets, you have to see this exhibit. They had so many...
Oh, it was great.
Obviously, Muppets, other puppets from smaller things that Jim Henson has done to kind of see the progression of the puppets is really interesting. Yeah. I mean, I was trying to get up close to the glass because seeing the detail in them...
Oh, yeah.
And then reading the materials that
the Miss Piggy in the wedding dress was awesome.
You see like every line of hair sometimes, and it's just so cool. They had stuff from the Dark Crystal, which I would say those are like some of the puppets that impressed me the most because of how
they're big,
how intricate they are. They had costumes from The Labyrinth.
Yes.
David Bowie's costume, Jennifer Connelly's costume, which I love that movie, so I was very appreciative that they had
great.
that.
The whole entire museum was great, but the Jim Henson thing by itself was, if you're a Jim Henson fan, you can't miss it. So, if you love TV and movies, I highly recommend going to the Museum of the Moving Image. They also had an old movie theater, right, in there?
Yeah, so they have screenings. The day we went, they were having a screening of the Muppets. We did not stay for that, but they have daily screenings of different films.
And there were people there who were just coming in for the screenings when we paid to get in. There were people who were like, "Oh, what's the screening today? What time does it start?" And people were doing that. It was a really cool museum, like I said, for collectors, because there's a lot of stuff that you could see people in their collection or people have loaned to the museum or gifted to the museum. So I had never heard of the museum before Cassie mentioned it, and so glad that we took the time to go see it.
They also have changing exhibits. Yeah. So right now So
we'll be back at some point.
Yeah, there's one exhibit under construction. So
and they even
constantly changing.
They had a cool gift store too, filled with stuff that we love, Godzilla and
that we will be purchasing,
monster stuff and Muppets and all kinds of movie books.
They had a figure of
Toxic Avenger?
The Toxic Avenger, and I had never
Cassidy's
seen that.
newfound love is the Toxic Avenger.
I don't love the film, but one of my friends recently, it's one of his favorite films.
And one of her uncles was actually in it, but we can't really find him in it. He did a one-day thing.
I've never seen Toxic Avenger
toys.
Anywhere.
Yeah, they had a bunch of different toys from different lines, which was cool. You don't usually see that in a museum.
A good amount of Muppets.
A good amount of Muppet stuff, yeah, which was a little expensive, but as a whole, definitely recommend if you can get to Astoria Queens. Parking was easy. We parked right on the side street. We didn't have to pay for the meter because it was a Saturday, right? Sunday.
No, it was
Saturday. It was Saturday. We didn't have to pay for the meter. There was a Starbucks across the street. We grabbed something quick to eat. Definitely recommend it. It was overall a good trip. Midtown Comics, watch that video, and then the museum. Perfect. Nice Saturday afternoon in Queens, which is something we don't normally do. But thanks for watching. Love what you collect.
Collect what you love.
We will see you next time, probably in Jersey, not Queens anymore.
We would be honored if you would join us.